live on Facebook and on Zoom for all of you who were here during that. And we're now recording.
Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. Super excited you're here. This is going to be a lot of fun. I've got a very special guest. This is a RealEstateInvestor.com member who is up in Spokane, but I have been really pumped on this interview because Justin, and we'll have him introduce himself in just a second, but he comes from a real estate background. I think that the more I learn about him, the more I realize it's kind of like myself, except somebody that got into real estate a lot sooner than I did. He comes from a real estate background, and Justin Sherfey is 21. He's moving and shaking. He's in the Spokane, Washington market, comes from a lineage of real estate. And I think this is going to be really an encouraging interview, because one thing I notice about Justin is he really comes from a perspective of learning and being mentored from experts and people in his local market, and just following the best practice, because I think those people that do that seem to have massive success. And I think that I just am so thrilled to have Justin Sherfey here with us to pick his brain and share some of the secrets of his success in a competitive market right now during the COVID period. So with no further ado, Justin Sherfey, welcome to our Facebook Live podcast show, interaction with our clients and members and friends.
Yeah, I love you guys. I'm happy to be here. And you guys are very inspirational to me. And so just happy to be here and pick your brains, and you can pick mine and share some of the value I sometimes don't know that I can provide. So.
Oh, you can, man. This is going to be fantastic. So one thing I learned about you is you're a musician at the same time, and you actually don't read notes. You actually play by sound, which is kind of interesting, because I don't play a musical instrument, but it's how I learn as well, which is interesting. So tell us a little of your background and music, and then college. I know that you were making so much money in real estate that you said, you know what, I'm going to put that stuff on hold and make more money and have more fun.
Yeah. And that's kind of exactly what happened. Just a little about me. Born and raised in Spokane. My mom's an agent. My dad's a spec home builder. He has a little niche. He builds on acreage up here. He has 0 employees and he loves it. And he's very happy. And so, right around when I would say 10 years old is when the 2008 crash came. And during that time, I said, I am never doing real estate. I wanted to be a dentist. I want to be an architect. I'm never going to do real estate. And, that time went by. We did all right. Dad, couldn't build a house. And just learning from that. And I was like, man, this is just up and down. And so from that, I grew up a little bit. I was only 10. I didn't know a whole lot, but I watched that, and I had a passion for music, and I play the fiddle. So it's the exact same thing as a violin. It's just the way you play it. And so I learned to play by ear. So all those notes you see in the orchestras, I'm not very good at reading notes. I can barely do it. I learned it all by ear. And so I'm a 4-time national fiddle champion. So I was in my bedroom practicing away for years. And I love music, but the lifestyle didn't quite add up to where I wanted to live my life. And come high school, I was told by my parents, you need to go get a job. And so I created a job. I started playing at assisted livings, retirement homes, playing music. And I did that through high school and parts of college, playing gigs, booking myself, being organized, negotiating. And ultimately, I discovered, in high school, I was just listening to a ton of podcasts, taking in a ton of information. And I did find out, I kind of wised up. I grew up a little bit and found, okay, this real estate thing isn't half bad. And right out of high school, I built a spec house with my dad, 10 acres, just south of town. Saw how that all worked. I gave him a big portion of my life savings and went into digging a hole in the ground and a foundation. We made some money off of that, and that was about 1 year ago. And it just wasn't for me at the time, especially the state of the market, that it was very capital intensive. And right after that, I said, well, how can I learn and make money now with what I have? And the answer was wholesaling. So I was at the gym at Eastern Washington University with my headphones in. I never listened to music. I was listening to a podcast that you were on, Gary, and I was like, this could be it. This could be it. So I set up a call. I might have biffed on my age a little bit when Julia asked me, "You're not 20, are you?" I said, "No, I'm in my 20s." So
That is awesome. So you did your first wholesale deal through a podcast and that was your entry into kind of getting into the initial wholesaling was through that?
yeah, I listened to a podcast. I joined, and then I got my first deal 2 months later. So the inspiration came from listening and just not being satisfied with where I was. So.
Oh man, that's really that's pretty that's pretty awesome. I got all the, if you look at my arms right now, I got like all the hairs are up on my arm. You know what? It makes everything meaningful for me. So that's really awesome. Super, super pumped that was an entry point. It's like, you know, when we came up with RealEstateInvestor.com, because I won't lie, it was a massive amount of work. And many times my wife and I went for a walk and she goes, you know, would you actually do it all over again? And I'm like, you know, that's a very good question, because, you know, it's hard having two businesses, because I'm passionate about real estate. I love interacting with sellers. It's probably the joy and the creative side. And then trying to create another business and build a business, it's a totally separate thing. And I know it comes down to the people of being able to interact. And I've had people come up to me and said, gosh, that was, you know, you gave me this little nugget and that was an inspiration, because I don't hear that often, but it makes everything worthwhile, man. So it's really, really touching.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, and how, now in terms of education now, are you constantly listening to real estate podcasts and learning more techniques and more ways to do this business?
Yeah, I am. I went on a bike this morning. I had, you know, my one headphone in and I was listening. I try not to, I think there's a point where you can get kind of just overflown with information, and some of the podcasts can just be the same thing, just over and over and over again. And so I've kind of turned more to just doing some audible stuff and still listening to podcasts if the hook is good enough, or if I need some inspiration, going and listening and you know, doing some courses and just, I mean, taking this time really to learn, but still be active and talking to people. Yeah.
Now fast forward a little bit. You've done a number of deals now over a fairly short period of time. How many deals have you closed?
Yeah, I have closed, I should know this right off the top of my head, I want to say 6. Just 6.
6 deals, which is awesome in a fairly short period of time. I was actually just looking, you've been really with us. I saw it looked like September. It looked like our initial marketing was right at the end of August. Does that sound about right?
It was, no, it was June.
It was June. Okay.
1 year. Yeah.
It's awesome. So in 1 year, you've closed 6 deals. And how's your pipeline look like right now? Like, what do you, because I'm going to go really quickly into like how you spend your day. Because I'm
love that. Yeah, my pipeline is full. My pipeline's great. It's just like I'm just building the Keystone pipeline up here, but just the overall consensus in the market, you know, people are kind of, overall what I've been seeing are kind of taking a pause on selling. You know, if they were on the edge, you know, now they're getting a little, you know, government assistance, whatever it is. One of my deals has been put on hold due to a eviction moratorium. We can't do any evictions. And like, even before the moratorium came up, I was like, I don't feel right about evicting people right now, even to make a quick buck. Like, so, and that was actually a deal that I partnered with Jake Evans, Gary.
Yeah, I know Jake.
Yeah, and he's been amazing. So, and then another guy up here, Robert, is Nathan Price.
Yep. I was gonna ask if you knew Nathan.
Yeah, and they've been from the get-go nothing but helpful. I kind of thought, oh, they got a big operation going on. I'm just a little guy over here, but they've been always picking up. So, and if I need something, so that's been very encouraging.
Yeah, and you've got the type of personality of, the coming across and being humble. I bet you're like Obi, and you probably don't even know who Obi is. But Obi is, you have a style of like, I bet the sellers just love you when you interact with them. I want to ask you about that. How are sellers interacting with you? The fact that you're on the younger side.
Yeah, that's a question that I struggled with in the beginning because I'm young and it's like, this kid's coming in here is going to buy my house. And so I leverage my family. My uncle flips houses, and when they hear that, I like really looking back on my first deal. I told the lady, like, I'm going to college, and part of the reason I'm doing this is to learn and then pay for my college. And there was two other big time volume wholesalers on that lead that got the appointment. I took the last appointment and closed on it, and I think it was because I was just real and honest and just telling her, hey, I'm just a college kid, my family's in the business, and it's had its advantages.
Oh my gosh, I would say that it's going to be absolutely key. You've probably heard me say this, and I'll say it to everybody else following. People buy and people sell and people invest to people that they like, trust, and respect. And you separate you separate yourself, and this is so key, by being a good listener, like really, really good, talented. I mean, this business is sales, right? It's marketing, driving leads, and then converting those leads. And the money is all made in really any real estate transaction. The money is really made on the front end, right? And even as I know that down the road you were going to go and you want to do bigger projects, which I encourage you to do. I would definitely want to talk about how to coach you a little bit on that, because I know that in a very short period of time you want to be able to say, hey, I have a performing business, my wholesaling business, that should never stop, right? But you want to have the ability of going and doing bigger projects. So we're going to talk about that. But
100%.
But being able to be a really good listener and being a solution provider, and that will differentiate you. I bet your close rate is fantastic as well, and probably even going to get better. But when you interact with the seller, like walk me through like your kind of process. Are you going quickly to make an offer, or are you spending some time and building trust and building a relationship and asking questions? Like, walk us through that.
Yeah, I really take my time. I have a decent amount of leads. I don't have, enough to where it's like just sift through and offer. So I have been taking the time to, yes, build that rapport, get to know these people on a personal level. Saying, I mean, Mr. Seller, I mean, if you sell this house, I mean, what are you going to do with this money? And they'll tell me, and I'll be like, well, I'll tell you what I would do. I'd probably, buy a couple guitars and, like just build honest rapport and just talk to them about real life. And it's just, being young, a lot of the sellers I talk to are, that 50 and over. And so building that rapport, like I'll mention my grandparents and, what are you thinking about this whole Corona thing? I mean, one of my grandpas, he just pretends to ignore it. My other grandpa's been cooped up for 3 months. What are you feeling? And just like they're talking to their grandson, so yeah. But yeah, taking time to talk to them, set expectations, and really just try to, dive in and get to know people and have quality conversations that aren't salesy.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. You definitely are doing it right. It's like without even a lot of training, you just have the natural approach. I would share it for everybody that's following this right now, try it. You know, your conversion rates will go up by slowing things down. You know, I think there's, I hate to use the word, the big lie, but, and I understand why people, a lot of trainers do it. It's like, oh, just make offer, right? You just need to make offers. But that is not a best practice in selling, right? Especially if you're solution selling, which is what we truly are doing with high ticket properties, right? It's slow it down. It is, you know, the close rate. Robert, you say this all the time, 90% of profits come after that sixth interaction with the seller. And so coming in and trying to make that quick lowball offer, you're really shooting, you're breaking every rule ever taught about sales. The reason most trainers in a course will say make offers is that, you know, there is a numbers game component, and a lot of people just have fear around rejection. And so it's like, okay, the more offers you make, the higher your chances are. But in reality, it's just slow it down. Take the extra time. I never make an offer on the first interaction. Even if I walk away and say, hey, I'd like to, you know, maybe spend 15 minutes and kind of just walk the house, I'll even think that's my second interaction, right? You just slow it all back down. I don't, you know, I bet you do this, Justin, but if you don't know what the answer is from the seller and you don't know whether you're going to get a yes or a no, you really shouldn't go there. You want open-ended questions. And one question I have for you around that is, will you go in and give them an offer, or are you starting to give them more of a range and spend more time figuring out what they want and what they're looking for, as opposed to coming in with what you want? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, for me personally, I mean, I know that my number is the only leverage like we have when you're talking to sellers. That's the only thing they care about. So once they get that, and if there's anything hidden behind, you know, the decisions there, you know, if I give them an offer and they still have things in their head that aren't coming to the surface yet, they're automatically going to say, this isn't a fit. So it's like just going down the, you know, sales process. And I do shoot them with the range. And it definitely kind of just is a feeler, just to kind of feel out what they're thinking, just by their immediate response after that range. And yeah, I love giving the range. It can be a time saver too, you know, if it's like, oh, I could never be there, you know, or yeah, I could see us being somewhere in that range. And
yeah. Are you doing most of your interaction? And I know that COVID is a little bit of a different time because we're doing a lot more over the phone, but have you done more appointments face-to-face when you're meeting with sellers historically this last year, or have you been doing most of it over the phone?
Yeah, pre-COVID, I was doing about 3 appointments a week. And I was going on appointments that were qualified, that were probably a retail lead. I was just going on appointments just to talk to people and see houses and learn. And so I was doing, yeah, probably about 3 appointments a week. And, you know, my close rate wasn't very high, but just to learn, because I'm fresh. I'm new, you know. And once COVID came around, I was like, oh man, virtual wholesaling. I was like, oh gosh. So I've gone through and I've, you know, told them, hey, can you just, you know, just pretend I'm showing up at your door. Can you just walk me through the house real quick and tell me about, you know, some of the finishes and, you know, just any repairs, and send me some pictures. And so I've done that. Now over in Idaho, I do have a couple appointments this week because they've opened up. But yeah, I definitely have transitioned more, and it's been a little bit of a learning curve, but it's going to be a learning curve that can help me scale too if I want to go jump around to other markets in the future.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, Robert, I'd love for hear your perspective on this. What I've found myself, the close rate is faster by the face-to-face, because you can look at the person, you know, eyeball to eyeball, and you can build this interaction, longer conversations. I found that doing it over the phone, I find the close rates are just as high, but I have to have more interactions. And I'm okay with that. A lot of people just have this need to like get right to the point. I think it's because they don't understand that, hey, take 5 steps, because every phone conversation that we have with the seller, the same seller, is typically like, I know that I'm going to make probably at least a discount of like $5,000. I automatically know that one more conversation will probably get me $5,000 discount. And, it's like, okay, imagine if you had 5 conversations, you just take a little extra time. Maybe they're 20-minute conversations, but 5 times 5,000 is $25,000, right? Or whatever math that you want to put at it. I like wholesaling. I also like doing creative deals. So I might make a $20,000 profit. I might make 200,000 over 15 years. But I know that $5,000 a phone call is worth the extra time. And Robert, how about on your side? Are you more conversations over the phone versus face to face?
Yeah, when I first started out, it was face-to-face, because I came from a sales background and doing 5 appointments a day face-to-face. So I was always taught belly to belly is the best thing. It's the best way to build rapport, right? Get across the kitchen table, sit in the room. So I had all those techniques and tactics. I found very quickly it was time consuming to drive to places to get there, and it wasn't very scalable for what I was doing, and I was moving very fast. So I switched to virtual a long time ago, before it was the sexy thing to do, and then fell in love with it because I realized I could do the exact same thing that I do belly to belly. To your point though, I generally have to have longer conversations on the phone and more of them, because the advantage, right? The advantage to belly is we can see each other. You get an instant sense if you like me or not, because you could visually see me. Now you could do that virtually too. I think we'll start seeing a lot more people transitioning to doing like Zoom calls with their sellers to create that belly to belly environment, which I never thought of pre-COVID to even doing. And I found the scalability was, though, we could scale up our marketing, we scale up our appointment pace much faster by being virtual and being able to do it over the phone, because now I can handle many more appointments in a day. So I can do a lot more on the number side. And still, to your point, Gary, and humbling to hear you, Justin, at 21 years old, I wish I could go back and say that I had all this figured out at your age. Like, just listening to the way you're like, oh yeah, I do this with a seller. Like, do you understand? I can guarantee you the majority of people on this call do. So to give you have so much wisdom beyond your years, I don't think you realize, to your point.
I probably don't.
No, the fact that you want to have a conversation and get to know the sellers that you're interacting with is, if no one took anything else away from this call, but the fact that you heard, I'll call you a kid, right? A 21-year-old kid do that and knows that that works. If all of you that are so much more experienced and so much smarter just did that one simple thing, your conversions would go through the roof, because that's the people component, the relationship component. And now virtually, all you have to do, which you'll do easily, the rest of you, the only shift is figuring out how to be that personable and listen and give the feeling of concern and care in your voice and the way you inflect it when you're on a phone call. And then you can produce the same results, but you have to care. You have to literally give a shit about the people on the phone or that you're interacting with, right? Because people know when you don't. They know when all you care about is it's, to your point, Gary, it's, oh, this is a numbers game. I've heard that so much in sales. And while there is truth to that, you have way better numbers if you're more personable and you're talking and you're interacting. Then on that 90% past the 6th, you could have still shot yourself in the foot if you were the guy they hated. 6 touches later, they're not going to forget you're the guy they hated because you didn't care about them, right? So there's a lot of benefit in that. And
yeah, there's some additional tons of wisdom in what you said, Justin. One was, you went out and practiced and you weren't worried about the deal as much. And one of the biggest fears that people have We see this all the time with people that we drive hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of leads, and they still have that fear of rejection.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't say it in the words, but you didn't have any of that fear. You're like, hey, I'm just going to go out and I'm going to practice and get in front. You cannot make money unless you fail. And I always say 3 no's or 5 no's equal a yes. Embrace the rejection. I've had so few sellers ever yell at me. I mean, I can't tell, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of calls, and very rarely will they yell at you. And if they yell at you, it's usually not at us. There's a bigger problem. Some of those deals have turned in. So embrace the rejection and really take it off the table of the need to close the deal, because really as investors, we call ourselves investors. We're really a solution provider. We're come in with a heart like you do. It's a human interaction and finding out what they need and then building a solution around what they need. And because they'll tell you. And the other thing is, I think the fact that you're 21 is a massive advantage for you. And embrace it. Don't ever, and I know that you're far enough along that you know this, right? The first ones, it's like, oh my gosh, how are people going to deal with a 21-year-old? I mean, it is a competitive differentiator for you, because people are going to see that you're humble, you're friendly, and that story, right? Stories sell. And so the fact that you're able to kind of craft your background of your family is another advantage of, like, it's people love that, right? And especially when you're relating both of the grandparents. And so, I bet you're going to still be talking about that in 20 years, about your family, because it's your story. Every one of us have a story, and you just build that into your process. Everybody that knows and they're interacting with me, talking to sellers, I've used the same story. My mom, she's 86, and she was biking just up 100 miles a week up till just a couple of years ago. And I'll be talking to another older family and talking about my mom, and we'll be talking about, my dad had leukemia, and then I'll hear about some health problems that they have. And it's people, there's 3 things. It's relationship, trust, and solution. So, right, you're building a relationship, just being honest and transparent and storytelling, and then they start to trust you, right? You're transparent, and then you're working to come up with a solution to that problem, and then relentlessly following up, right? The relentlessly following up is the magic, and I think you're probably starting to see that too, aren't you?
Yeah.
There was another nugget Justin had in there I want to share, because I wanted to say it earlier, right? There was a huge statement he made early on when you asked him if he was, podcast got him here, right? He had to learn something to get inspired to jump in. But then you asked him if he continued to do that. And that was another, for me, it was another one, because it was like, wow, I learned that after a decade that I was doing it wrong. I wish I would have did what he did. Right. But the reality is, he said, no, I don't listen to much of those unless I need some inspiration, because we can overload ourselves with too much learning. Right. And so there was a huge nugget there, because he's already figured that out. Like, I spent a decade studying stuff without ever taking action. And you solidified it very early on in this conversation and said, yeah, no, now I learn what I need to learn while I went and I do more appointments, because I'm learning my craft. There is no better way to learn this than doing it, right? That was a huge nugget early on that is even more impactful when he says it than when I say I spent a decade learning and doing.
Yeah. And it's because if you listen to, 5 different podcasts, 5 different, gurus, you're going to hear 25 different ways to do a deal, and you're never going to do it. You just need to pick one.
Yes.
So.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. Chase too many rabbits, catch none, right? Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, Jason Jordan is asking, what is your number 1 marketing method that's producing results today in these crazy times?
Yeah, one thing when I joined the Vault, I started with direct mail. I told myself I'm not going to touch any other marketing method for at least a year. And so I've been doing direct mail. That's it.
And so we've been doing your direct mail, or are you pulling any of your own lists, or are you letting us pull the 2 mailing lists for you?
Yeah. So you've been pulling the 2 lists for me. I'm learning more about, that data, because that is something, because right now, there isn't a vacant house list that is being able to be provided. So I'm learning that, because right now vacant stuff is what other people are finding that is working. So,
and we're going to solve that. We're going to have either Manish or somebody on the team. We've got the vacant capability for you, and that was part of the merger with Robert, because they have a software solution that does data stacking and the skip tracing, and it's all integrated to the CRM platform. And so we're going to basically plug you in, because that vacant list, what I'm hearing and seeing around the country with this lockdown right now, are the people that actually have more vacant properties are the ones that are moving the inventory, where their owner occupied is slower right now. And also in some of these properties where they've got tenants that are not paying, right? Those burned out landlords will also, you can buy those at an even steeper discount and take on the tenant and flip those properties. There are cash buyers that will buy them right at the right price. So I think that that would be another one, but we'll get that to you as well. I have one little secret. I'm going to do this just as a thank you for you. There's these Post-it notes. So when you go out to the property, and ultimately you're going to have somebody do this for you, but there are Post-it notes that you're going to post on like 10 or once you get a deal under contract or you're meeting with the seller, I want you to take these Post-it notes, very simple, and you're going to post it on the closest doors of properties that you want to buy in the neighborhood. And you're going to buy some more properties off of that. And so I'm going to ship those to you. I think there's like 2,000 of them. Super simple, and it's going to be my gift, because I want to hear some success off of you. I've got a couple of buddies that have been doing this consistently, and like for every 10 of these Post-it notes, they're typically getting at least 1 phone call back. So it'll be really easy. And then down the road, once you close a couple, you're going to say, oh, I now have another marketing method, and I've got 2,000 of these Post-it notes from Gary, and you can just give them to some young friends of yours and pay them a little bit of money and have them go post stuff in neighborhoods you want to buy in. Cool. So that'll be my gift to you. And the only thing that you have to do in return is tell me the deals that you're starting to flow, because I'd like to track that and know that helped you.
Yeah, no, definitely I will. And just a little kind of a nugget that I've been finding up here, being 21, a lot of my friends are in college right now. A lot of them, their jobs are not, or internships are not coming to fruition. And so I've actually been, contacted by some friends like, hey, do you have something I can do? Or can I just come and kind of see what you're doing? And so kind of the message to everyone out there, reach out to those, that younger college internship crowd, because if their internship was not local, it's probably not happening. And so that's something that I'm taking advantage of during this time.
No, that's awesome.
The other, I want to touch on that too. There is another impactful thing you said about marketing, right? Which is, think about this. You know how many people on here, it ties to what you said about podcast learning, pick one and go all in. You literally said, I do direct mail. Oh, you mean you're not doing the sexy text messaging and the cold calling, online, right? You picked one thing, and I love your answer. You said, I picked one thing and I'm all in on it for a year. Then you'll look at other things, right? And now you just got gifted a second thing, so that's cool too. But the for anyone else that's watching this, that's like huge. We all have to figure out. Here's the magic I heard that people don't take away, right? The magic was just decided to go all in on one channel and let it be successful. That's called focus and consistency in his marketing. That's why he has a result. He'll continue to have a result. He's not in search of the magic bullet, the next magic marketing thing that everyone's running towards, the next shiny object, right? It's one. You picked one channel and went all in. Doesn't matter what the channel is, by the way. There's no magical channel. It's the one you focus all your energy on consistently. And then to Gary's point earlier, which I obviously agree on, relentlessly follow up on from that point forward.
Yeah. The temptation's hard because there's every week,
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, you can't get emails. I mean, you can't open up your inbox without the next like little shiny object. I call those schemes. It's like, oh, you just buy this little thing that I have and suddenly life is going to be solved for you. But that's the focusing on one marketing channel and kind of maxing it out. You know, we had Trevor Mock on a couple of weeks ago on one of our calls. That was a great call. If you are on Facebook, on Real Estate Investor Beacon, definitely go back and watch the Trevor Mock interview. Trevor actually runs Carrot websites, and you know, when you're doing pay-per-click and buying ads, you're going to cap. There's only so much money that you can actually spend in a market, and you cap out. So that's typically when you want to expand, when you're ready. It's not like, hey, I'm going to take my money and spread it across 5 channels, because those channels are typically, they're very different. You know, pay-per-click online ads are usually, your process has to be on those leads like instantaneously. When you're doing direct mail or cold calling, it's kind of what I call push versus pull. When you're going out to the seller, it's different than when the sellers are coming to you, right? You can actually, those leads that you have from 6 to 9 months ago, a year ago, are going to be just as good today for the most part, except some of them are going to sell. You'll go back to some of those leads from a year ago and you'll realize other investors bought them because you didn't relentlessly follow up as much as you could have. And you'll start seeing, oh my gosh, I lost $100,000 to these other investors. But you know, you want to get really good at one. Direct mail, you tap out as well, right? There's only so many nuggets in a market. If there's 250,000 households, say in Spokane, you know, you really should be marketing about 25,000. About 10 to 15% of the properties are going to be the ones that we want to target as investors, right? And so, and if you, let's say you marketed to them every week, you're going to get list fatigue is what they call. So you cap it out, right? In your market, you could probably go up to maybe $12,000 to $15,000 a month in marketing, right? That should produce you a very sizable amount of profits and in a very healthy business, right? And then you expand to the next, and then you expand to the next when you're ready to grow. So no, that's awesome. What is your average profit per deal in your market right now, Justin?
For me personally, it's for what, like overall what everyone's doing or what I'm doing personally?
What you're doing.
Yeah, my average profit is right around 13
grand. And I think that's probably a little higher than most people wholesaling in your market. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, there's a big shift. You know, there's some guys who are, you know, very, very high volume. They're good with making 5 to 10K. And the other guys who are, you know, doing 20 plus every time. And just to touch on what you said, because I have had that happen when another wholesaler will get a deal, it'll come to my inbox. I immediately call them up, and I'm not mad. I'm just like, man, I had a conversation with them. Like, what did you do? You know, what was, and how did you do that? And I've learned every time. And so.
Yeah. What have you learned from that? Like, cause I think that's brilliant, by the way. I think every one of us, if as you're seeing deals that are closing, going back and finding out, okay, what was the price, right? You came in and maybe you offered 200,000. I found many times that somebody else will get it for 205 or 202, right? It was the fact that maybe you were there early, the seller was not ready yet, and you came in with an offer too fast sometimes is what I have found. And that's one of the other reasons of slowing it down, maybe giving a range. I like giving the bigger range, right? I want to know if I'm early, right? I want a big enough range where if another investor comes in, they're going to remember me and say, hey, Gary, Gary came in between 200 and 240. And so this other guy comes in at say 210. I want them to remember my 240 and say, well, I want to give Gary one more call.
Yep.
Right. So that's, it's really interesting. Any other questions that you're seeing? I want to make sure that we're hitting up the questions for you.
I keep checking Facebook to double check. Most of it was just comments so far. Just, hey, yep, focused. Just thinking about how to do the virtual conversations after this long-term post-COVID. So no other questions yet that have come in.
One thing you also mentioned is that you're working at, like, you love to be mentored and coached with people in your local market. Talk about that, because I think learning should never end. In our real estate cycles, things are changing constantly, right? What worked 4 or 5 years ago is a little different than it was today and a decade ago. And so always learning and always sharing. But you've taken a really interesting approach with working with guys in your local market like Nick and
Nathan
and Evans, Jake Evans.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, in the very beginning, I was on a couple, buyers lists forever, just kind of seeing. Eventually, I called him up, and about 1 year ago is when I, got coffee with Jake Evans, and he has a very successful business here in town, and he has the whole low volume, high assignment model going on, and he crushes it. And in the beginning, I was kind of confused. I was like, why is this guy, uber successful, has a team working for him? He just spent 2 hours with me at coffee. Like, I'm like, what's going on here? And I even asked my parents about that. I've kind of found, at least in our town, it's kind of a generational thing. The younger generation has an abundance mindset of, there's enough deals to go around. There's more than enough. There's a ton of opportunity. Let's work together. We can all make more if we get together. And so I've met, everyone who's active in the market. We go skiing, we go wake surfing, we're just friends. And, those guys, like, their businesses are, awesome. And I'm not to their level at all, but just being around and just being a friend and just being another, not being like starstruck by their amazing, businesses, but just being relatable and going and having lunch and just talking shop, and not always having it be real estate. Because then it just isn't a genuine, long-term relationship.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I have got an investor in this original business. I was flipping houses. One of the houses that I flipped to them years ago, and that was actually a incredible short sale deal. This is before anybody in California even knew what a short sale was. And so I was like the only game in town. And I got this incredible deal. It was actually on a golf course. I was in Los Altos, which is like this, that's where all the Google billionaires live. And so I got this boxy house and got a free car out of it. In fact, the seller liked me so much. I was a lot younger back then. And he had this Mercedes. It was a red convertible Mercedes. He literally gave it to me as a gift. And but I sold that house to these guys, Glenn and Dave. They actually at the time had a third partner, and it was the same thing. I was picking their brains. That house they ended up making a fortune on, and they did a full rehab, and they won an award, an annual award at their real estate club. And same type of thing. I would go and pick their brain, and I got to come to the house and see the whole finished product. And then I had this Christmas party. I just created this Christmas party for my group, my tribe, and we've been doing Christmas parties ever since. And then part of our fulfillment house was the wife that does the direct mail for you. That one of the facilities is actually Dave's wife. And it's just building relationships. I've done lending with them. They invested in my business. And it's the same thing. It's like those relationships are lifelong. The same thing with the sellers. It's like, I bet you're really good at this, but those sellers will be incredible referral partners for you. I don't understand how people don't keep in contact with, their sellers as an example. That will be one of the best referral areas for you, right? You do marketing for a period of time, but over a handful of years, most of your deal flow should ultimately come from referrals, right? Of doing good business and, interacting, sending thank you cards, Christmas cards, little reminders. I always send presents at the end of the year for those people. So it's awesome. So good stuff. Now let's talk a little bit about your future of where you see yourself and where do you want to go. You're wholesaling now, but over a period of time, you ultimately want to get into some bigger projects. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. That's something that I'm trying to get clear on too. Sometimes it's hard to know where I want to go. And so I read the book Vivid Vision. And so I've been editing my, I have a copy right here, but it's called I just retitled it. It's the $10 million climb. So I have all of it just laid out here of what, I would like things to look like in 3 years. And sometimes it's just hard to know. Because I am young, and I want to eventually move into my whole idea was wholesaling for cash now, and eventually do multifamily repositions for cash flow and cash later. And it kind of happened through a family friend. I was looking for a rental. I was just looking for my first rental. And I hit up a good family friend who is a retired baseball player and who has taken up an interest in real estate. And I shot him this rental. I'm like, hey, is this something you'd want to partner on? He's like, no, it's just a little too small. And I'm like, well, what are you thinking? He's like, let's do 12. I need 12 or more units, A or B area. And so that's kind of when that just mindset shift happened for me of like, think bigger. And then I have just started following a couple people in that space, learning, and because that's eventually kind of the transition that I'm trying to figure out too, is, build up this wholesaling business. And then when does that cash flow business does that take over, and does the wholesaling, if I'm still active in that business, does that just kind of go by the wayside because that weighs out, or build that up to where it can just go and then have that always kind of be there? That's the thing I'm trying to work through my vision, because it's hard to know what the timing's going to be.
Well, I've got a little gift that I'd love to give you. And very, very few people know about a program that we have. It's called our Reinvent program. It's basically a traction EOS coaching program that Tyler Ambert's been through it. We've, oh my gosh, a lot of people have been through it. And so what I'd like to do is give you 2 months of the coaching program for the team. It'll probably be a combination of Wiltz and possibly even with Willie to help get you. It'll be a call to help flesh that out with you so that you come away with a clear vision. How about that? Manish, you're on here. I'm going to have you capture that plus the Post-it notes that I want. But there's a visionary document template that we built. It's basically a roadmap. We call it Rapid, and Rapid for me is there's a sales process, and then also our roadmap and implementation plan that will actually give you clarity as to where you should go. So you can walk away at the end of this, you should be able to say, okay, I'm going to have a lot more vision, because I think Wiltz or Willie, and Willie's been my CEO coach for years, but having clarity of vision and purpose is so important. It's really the first thing to do, of like, what kind of life do we want, right? And then you build off of that, because if you have no vision, you end up where you go is definitely is not the place that you would have ever thought, right? You really want to know where you're going, and then you work backwards as opposed to from today out. It'll be very interesting for you. So I want to give that to you. I may actually join part of that call. The other piece for you and for everybody else that's following is the wholesaling business really ultimately should be a business in a box if it's done right, right? And what that means is, if you should be able to keep that going, it doesn't mean that you have to turn it off. You're just going to have somebody running that for you, right? And you're using it as a revenue generating opportunity. You're going to ultimately get a sales acquisition manager in there. And I would call them, I wouldn't hire them as an employee or call them a staff. I would call them a profit sharing partner. So you're going to bring a profit sharing partner in. And if it's the right partner, they ultimately could take over, right, that, so that you're more of a passive investor. So you're going to get, that you come in and you're able to come into the management meetings, right? And you're what we call our level 10 meeting with the numbers, but you're getting income coming off of it. And then you can either take your wholesaling business and replicate it in another market, or you can start working on bigger projects. And that really goes to the Robert Kiyosaki 4 quadrants, right? The 4 quadrants, if you've read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, on the left-hand side, in fact, I think I actually even have a slide that I think, because I was actually working on something, Robert and I were working on something even this morning. I'm going to pull it up here really quick.
Yeah, I just read chapter 10 of Traction this morning, so
Nice.
I know all that.
Awesome.
Level
Yeah.
10.
Yeah, so check this out. The timing, I think this will resonate for a lot of us. My screen's going to be black for just a second here. There we go. So this was the 4 quadrants. And frankly, this is what really got me excited about real estate. Rich Dad had the 4 quadrants, right? On the left-hand side, we've got the employee, right? Or the self-employed, but both of these are jobs. And what happens is most real estate investors, they really never get out of the left side. And the business owner, right, runs systems and people. And that's where you become wealthy, right? You look at your business differently. And then ultimately it's the investor, where you're putting in money and everything is done by other people, right? And so there is a leverage component. This is what our team will help you with, getting super clear. It's like, how much money in generates how much money out? What is the true return of investment on your time? Like, what is your time worth? Because you'll start realizing, wow, leveraging other people is how I get massive, uptick and out of the JOB. And then the opportunity cost is the other one that most people forget about. And that is, if it takes, let's say it takes 6 months, 6 months to get something up and running, but you could actually pay 10 grand or 20 grand right now, right? A lot of people will say, oh, I don't want to spend the 20 grand, but it'll take them 6 months or a year. And let's say another person put up the 10 or 20 grand today and they had it working so that they made $500,000. Well, people are like, oh, I saved the 20,000, but yes, it cost you $500,000, right? And so that's the big component of how do you get over here. And so by having a profit sharing partner, ultimately, and I title them because, you may have to go through 4 or 5 or 6 people that will actually be that profit sharing person that can come in and run the sales piece, sales acquisitions for you, and ultimately that business. So imagine if you had $1 million a year business and you were netting $300,000 a year doing nothing except oversight. Now you have $300,000 and 100% of your time back to go do bigger ventures. So you should be able to do this move properly within this next 12 months if you do it right and if you're really super focused. So if you'd like, our team will help you have a couple of really focused coaching calls to get clarity on that. So you'll have that vision and plan that you can say, okay, here's where I need to head with a plan in place. Cool?
Yeah, no, I would absolutely love that. That would be a great help.
Yeah. Robert, you want to add anything onto that?
No.
Yeah.
There is a question that came in, and we're getting near the top of the hour, so I want to see if we can answer this one. Well, a couple great comments. Great job, Justin, from Manuel. That's great, Justin. You have some quality relationships, which are hard to build in this industry. But you know why he has them? He said it. He approaches it from a relationship. He's not just trying to pick their brain. He's actually trying to become their friends, which, by the way, is creating a new circle for him also. The question that came in was, Justin, what are your thoughts about direct mail during COVID? I personally actually bring less mail into my home. And if it's not from someone that I know or have a relationship with, it doesn't even make it past my mailbox. I have a hunch of your answer, but go ahead and answer.
Yeah, I think I commented on last week's video you guys did. I had my highest response month ever last month, 8.5%, which is almost double. The only thing is the pipeline's full, but the deals aren't coming to fruition right now.
Yep.
So yeah, the direct mail it's picked up. And the other thing is everyone in my market's cold calling, and I'm not.
Yep.
So and that's kind of one of the things I've thought about. Well, if it's working for everyone, maybe should I do it? Or, I'm just going to keep on that direct mail train. So that's another thought or question I've been thinking about.
I'll help you with that one. Stick to what you already said, because it was the smartest thing you ever said. Don't go chase that other rabbit.
Yeah.
You just, to me, answered your own question in the fact that you said my response rate doubled. Now, if you've been following any of these, right, that we've done, you've heard Gary, I, and all the guests we've came on. The people who are going to end up out of business out of this are the ones that stop marketing, because this is the pipeline that's down the road. So the fact that you doubled your response rate, yeah, you may not have deals coming to fruition yet, but you just doubled your potential pipeline that is now in your follow-up sequence, that when people start coming on the other side of this in your market, you have more potential upside for deals than anyone else in your market as a result.
Yeah.
But that's what I figured.
Yeah, and the other, I was looking at, you've got a lot of leads, and what I would be continuing to work towards is closing the gap on the number of leads to the deal rate. Because I actually think, I was just running the math, I think you probably have another 20 deals that should pop out, even if you didn't do more marketing, just as a note. I'm just continuing to work and having a purpose of following up. I'd love for you to make sure that you're doing the follow-up letters. Are you using any of the follow-up letters from us? Those follow-up letters will get a nice response, but if you combine that with the phone group that's interacting, it's hitting them multi-channel, right? And so the follow-up letters, I tell a lot of people, take the follow-up letters, go back to all of your old leads. I don't believe in, once you have a seller that calls, you really shouldn't send postcards to them again. You really should only put follow-up letters, right? Follow-up letters, text messages, and phone interaction, because you already have the lead, and that lead is gold. If everybody realized, you might spend $15 to $20 to generate the lead, it's very little cost to then nurture that lead, right? And so you already have the lead. It's really around, you shouldn't have to spend more than $7 or $8, really, an extra cost to maximize that lead. A lot of people throw massive amounts of money away. They'll just continue to send out postcards, but you already have the lead. That's where follow-up comes in place. Let's see, so Norman asked, would this clarity coaching call be for others? Would it be available for others? We need to probably get more information on our website, because we don't share this that often. It's usually internally through Darren. We have a reinvent coaching program. It's typically a 12-month program, but it's very traction based and having massive clarity of vision. And then it's one-on-one coaching, accountability, performance coaching, and technical coaching. And so we'll, if you have interest in that, Norman, we can get you, there's a couple of videos that I'll post this in the show notes from today on Facebook as well. But there's a couple of really good videos that I think are awesome that we'll get out that kind of walk through the program in a little bit more detail. Willie put them together. They're really awesome. He's my coach, and we've had this in place for a couple of years, but I'll post that. I do. I actually think if you think of every musician, professional musician, actor, sports person has a coach. And I think that having the right coach makes such a difference in our business. And so I think this will help, whether it's using our coaching group or you find somebody in your local market, that's cool, but just have a coach.
Yeah, that's been one of my questions too. It's like, when are you ready for a coach? When are you ready for that investment? It just sounds like overall it's as soon as you possibly can.
Yeah, the coaching has been, I mean, we wouldn't be on this call today. I wouldn't have a business if I didn't have coaches. And I think you should have a coach day one. A good coach knows your blind spots, right? They also know a lot of our excuses. And so having somebody that can kind of keep you on the vision, right? Because it's very easy. What do you say all the time, Robert? That the most expensive, most valuable real estate in the entire world is between the 6 inches right here between our ears, right? And it's making sure that we have clarity of vision and somebody that's really helping you break through those stucks. And a lot of those stucks we don't even know. We think that it's real estate. I need to learn more stuff about real estate. It's like, no, you just need somebody that's kind of going to continue to make sure that you're focused. You want to make $1 million and you want to build a truly passive business. That's where you want to go. You want somebody that's there guiding you and making sure that you're on plan. And so I think a coach it's priceless from my perspective, the right coach. If you Google, Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, had a video out there. You could type Google Eric Schmidt coaching, and he'll say that Google, he was a billionaire before he started. He actually ran another company. And Eric said that, first off, it's like, why would I ever need a coach? And he said that he ended up getting the Silicon Valley coach. He said Google would not be anything today if it wasn't for that coaching that he had. So it was a really good inspirational video.
Yeah, that's a need of mine for sure.
Yeah, awesome. So we'll get that set up for you, because I think that in terms of where you want to head, I don't think it should take you more than 6 to 9 months for you to be on track towards much bigger. The other thing with a coach is you're going to probably learn that you're thinking that this is what you want, and all of a sudden it's like, with a good coach, they're going to make you realize that you could double or triple or quadruple that number, and that you're thinking too small because of limiting beliefs, and then they help you break through those.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So, well, good stuff. Anything else here? Any questions for us, Justin, before we wrap?
How many hours do you guys have? I mean, yeah. I did take a couple notes that I was thinking. So being younger, yeah, I guess this can be a note that we can kind of leave on if that's okay with you guys. Being younger, I have been, in real estate, I've been asked to, hey, do you want to come join our company? Hey, do you want to come partner with us on, do you want to, it happens on a regular basis, like in trying to be hired for other wholesale companies, and just kind of filtering through those opportunities. I might even answer my own question, but because I'm really quick to say no. But I mean, for you guys, I mean, you have obviously partnered. And so when was it something where you're like, okay, I'm gonna actually open my eyes and let me take a look at this,
Great question. I'll go ahead and answer that one real quick. So from my perspective, the answer for us is probably different for the answer for you and for different reasons. But how you know when it's right, number one, trust your gut, right? If you instantly are already feeling, no, I wouldn't want to be a part of you, there's a reason you feel that, and go with that. So I would say that. Secondly, and especially in the way you worded it, people wanting you to come work for their company, they're trying to piggyback off of what they see you doing, right? And a lot of times we say yes because of our own fears that we can't get there without them. Now, because I've partnered like that in the past, right? And that made me say yes to partnerships that I won't say I regret, because they were massive learning lessons, but they helped me learn a lot of lessons I would have rather liked to have learned a different way. We'll say it that way. Where we're at today, and for me, from my perspective of what helped Gary and I, is we realized when we looked at it, number one, I went with my gut. I feel there's something compelling about this guy and what he's doing and his vision and everything. So you start looking at, is their vision the same as mine? Even more importantly, and we're both faith-based men, so I'll say it this way: are you equally yoked, or do you have the same core values? So if you don't come from the Bible and God, at least do you have the same core values? Do you believe in the same things? Because if you don't, there's no point in ever moving forward, right? And now if those two are both true, then the next thing is the combination of you coming together and doing something together, which is our case, way more powerful than either of you could have ever done it alone. And not just because I'm afraid that I can't get there without this person, but I truly believe they bring something to the plate that is different than what I do, and we really can do 10 times more together than we could alone. And then for me, and that's what you see in RealEstateInvestor.com and why we came together, is because I believe the answer to all that was unequivocally yes. And so it's why we are where we are today, from my perspective. Mr. Gary.
Yeah, one little exercise that I really I think would help you if you haven't done this, but it definitely helped me. And you stand back and you write your perfect day. Look 5 years out, you're 25, 26. And, what do you want your life to look like? Who do you want to be hanging out with? What types of, you pick a particular day. I woke up on a Saturday morning and I wrote this. I did this in 2009. I actually rewrote it almost every year after that. It's amazing, like when I look back at the progression of what that looks like. And I'll send you mine. I'll actually send you, and I'll have the team actually send a copy, so you'll kind of have a construct. Yeah. But what is your life going to look like in 5 to 6 years? Are you married? Do you have kids? Are you traveling the world? What is the experience that you're going to have, and who are you hanging out with, and what does your time look like, and where do you spend your time, and all the way down to your senses. And I think that if you have clarity around that first, 5 years out, and you're really thinking about it, don't do this in your office. Go out for a hike, go up to Coeur d'Alene, somewhere, and just spend. It's a really fun exercise. It's a 1 or 2 page piece of paper. You'll have clarity from that piece of paper, I believe, as to whether you should go work for somebody else. And also what fires you up? Like, what gets you excited? One of the things Willie helped me with is some of the personality tests. I basically went through Enneagram as an example, and to flush out like my style of what gets me fired up. I'm definitely super high entrepreneurial, very visionary, very abundant. I love giving back. And so what I wanted to do and spend my time is being able to help others and also make really, really good money doing it. So it really comes down to like what you want your life to look like in a handful of years, having a vision. A lot of people are like, oh, I just want to do 100 deals a year. I want to make I want to have $10 million in my bank account. And I actually think that's a huge fallacy. I don't think that is it's more around, I go back to the passive income, right? I live pretty, a pretty modest lifestyle. I don't think if I had $1 billion, I really wouldn't be living differently than we are now. Might have a little bit of a bigger house, but not much. And so it's like, you don't really need that much money on a monthly basis. And that was what I was striving for, is I just wanted to know that I had this amount of money coming in from my ventures consistently, and I wouldn't have to worry, and I could do whatever I want. And I could actually have multiple ventures. I love lending. I still love doing deals, but I just didn't want to have to do all the work behind the scenes. And so how could I do what I love to do and be able to have lots of vacations? And so get clarity on that, because I think the answer of whether you need to go work for somebody comes out of that. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah.
I think you're on such a great trajectory. You got the right mindset. You're doing the right stuff. You're getting, that humbleness, don't lose that. So, I find the older I get, the less that I know about the world, and the more humble I am. And the fact that you're coming into it at 21 the way you are, man, you've got a very bright future. And you're going to be, I always say this was like claymanship. You're going to be going from student to teacher very fast. So you're going to have people coming to you to want to learn. And I think you have that in your future as well. So
yeah, I was teaching fiddle lessons 1 year ago. So,
and you're going to be teaching people the art of making money in real estate pretty soon.
yeah, I'd love to do that for people.
Awesome. Well, hey everybody, if you're following this and you're on Facebook, we'd love for you to like this video and like our page and share it. Love to get the real estate investor beacon out to more people if you find that this has been helpful for you and it can be helpful for others. And we love your feedback. I'm seeing, I see that Frank came in. Frank, actually I've known Frank. He's in New York. Frank, he's been a long-term friend of mine. He said, proud of you, Justin. Keep crushing it, bro. And Norman said, where there is no vision, the people perish. Amen to that, Norman. So we love you all. And God bless you all. And thank you so much, Justin. Any way we can help, just let us know.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Greatly appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Cheers.
All right, everyone. Have a great day. Stay healthy. Stay safe. See you next week.
Cheers.
Bye now.